Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is the Bodega Cat Book Club, the health edition. And this is a brand new book club that we're starting in January 2025. So we're going to start with chapter 1. And here we go. Chapter 1, I almost died. Here's a little diagram of his theory. 1 disease, molecular malfunction. 2 causes, deficiency and toxicity. And 6 pathways, nutrition, toxin, psychological, physical, genetic, and medical. Kind of look like the food pyramid, doesn't it? Okay, I'm going to move the camera in a little closer so you guys can read. Follow if you don't have the book with you. Okay, sorry about that. All right, I hope that's not too nauseating. Okay, the next major advance in the health of the American people will be determined by what the individual is willing to do for himself. John Knowles, former president, the Rockefeller Foundation. Not too many years ago, no one would have been able to convince me that I would be writing a definitive book about human health and performance. I was no health expert. In fact, I gave little thought to the subject. I assumed I was healthy and that I could do little to improve upon it. Yet, here I am today, devoting my life to researching and improving health. Concern for our health is something we all have in common. We all would like to live a high-quality, disease-free life, no matter how long that life may be. But most of us have no idea that a disease-free life is possible. So our priorities become out of whack, and we form habits that jeopardize our health. Then we ignore the early signs of ill health, and without knowing it, we lay the groundwork for disaster. That is exactly what I did. At the height of my former career, I was president of an international management consulting firm, specializing in international competitiveness, industrial quality, and productivity. I was a consultant to Fortune 500 companies and State Department, the United Nations, and to the prime ministers of several foreign governments. Life had been good to me. Then the early warning signs that things were changing came in 1983. I began to slow down, requiring more sleep and tiring more easily. I began to experience frequent allergic reactions, including runny nose, itchy eyes, sneezing, heart palpitations, and skin rashes. I suffered muscle aches and joint pain. I felt as though I was losing my edge, losing some of the mental and physical capacity that had allowed me to operate at the highest levels of international business and government. Life was becoming less fun and more like a chore. I brought these complaints to the attention of my physician, a man who the medical community rated as one of the best. He examined me. When I protested, I skipped a line here. He examined me, did many tests, and pronounced me in excellent health. When I protested, saying I did not feel like I was in excellent health, he replied, "You're just getting older." I protested again, saying that in my whole life, I had never felt this way before. He continued, "Well, you have never been this old before." I was 46 years old. I would later discover that physicians have no protocols or established procedures for measuring early decline in health. Instead, they blame getting older for so many feelings of ill health, even at ages when human beings have the potential to be in their prime. Remember, I was only 46 when I began suffering from problems attributed to my age. Physicians consistently assume that the patient is well until his or her condition deteriorates into symptoms that the doctor recognizes as a diagnosable disease. Over the next year and a half, my symptoms worsened. My fatigue became more pronounced. I required ever increasing amounts of sleep, and even then I felt tired. The fatigue made it increasingly difficult to travel as my job required. My allergic reactions were becoming more severe. I would experience sneezing fits so dramatic that I would have to rest after them. My heart palpitations were more frequent and pronounced. I would see colored rings around lights and my vision would blur. I finally decided to seek the assistance of an allergy specialist. Little did I realize as I entered the doctor's office that fateful morning that it would be the last day of life as I had known it. The allergist administered a diagnostic test called an intradermal test, whereby an allergen is injected into the skin with a hypodermic needle. The procedure is much more provocative and sensitive than the physical scratch tests familiar to most people. Intradermal tests may identify allergies that might otherwise be missed. However, if someone is especially sensitive to allergen, this type of test can provoke a serious reaction. My doctor neglected to tell me that the FDA regularly receives reports of injuries and deaths from these tests. My condition and the fact that I was experiencing significant allergic reactions at the time should have prompted this physician to be more cautious and anticipate that an intradermal test might provoke a serious reaction. It did. The reaction was catastrophic, causing my immune system to spin out of control. During the next week, I slept almost constantly and appeared to have aged about 10 years. I suffered fatigue and disability unlike anything I had ever experienced. Prior to the test, although I had some serious allergy problems, I was still able to function relatively normally. Afterward, I was seriously ill and almost completely dysfunctional. Years later, another physician, one considerably better informed, gave me a meaningful prescription. Gave me a meaningful description of what had happened to me. He described my state of compromised health as rather like standing on the edge of a precipice. My allergist did not recognize my vulnerability and the need to work initially with nutritional support and conservative treatments to back me away from that edge. The allergist's decision to administer a provocative test pushed me off the precipice into an abyss of catastrophic health decline. 10 months later, I was still in that abyss of illness and anxiety, with my health in a downward spiral. In the past, whenever I had been sick, I had always recovered in a matter of days or weeks. This time was different indeed. I experienced chronic fatigue, multiple chemical sensitivities, and allergic reactions to almost everything. I also developed several autoimmune syndromes, including Sjogren's syndrome. I've never heard of that. Interesting. Hashimoto's, thyroiditis, and lupus. In these syndromes, the immune system attacks the body's own tissues, causing a cascade of serious problems. In my case, my immune system was attacking my salivary glands, lacrimal glands, thyroid gland, kidneys, and connective tissue. I had an extensive list of debilitating symptoms, including dizziness, impaired memory, depression, heart palpitations, blurred vision, muscle and joint pain, diarrhea, bloating, nausea, numbness, and even seizures. I was unable to perform any meaningful activity. My health was gone, and life as I had known it was over. During those 10 nightmarish months, I visited 36 medical doctors. I had so many different symptoms that I was referred to specialists for each one, including ophthalmologists, gastroenterologists, neurologists, endocrinologists, cardiologists, allergists, rheumatologists, psychiatrists, internists, and immunologists. Holy moly, those are mouthful. Being bounced from one specialist to another, sometimes seeing 2 or even 3 in a day, was very frustrating. I certainly heard plenty of second, third, and fourth opinions, often conflicting, but none particularly helpful. My multitude of symptoms totally baffled those learned specialists. How much easier it would have been had they known what I know now, that there is only one disease and that symptoms are not important. Ah, that's an interesting statement. There's only one disease and that symptoms are not important. That's a true statement, isn't it? They performed many expensive diagnostic tests, which served little purpose other than to give fancy names to my symptoms, such as neuropathy, colitis, arrhythmia, arthralgia, keratitis sicca, thyroiditis, and others. They are merely describing my symptoms with a technical name, the usual diagnosing, and then sending a bill. That's what it's all about, isn't it? It's all about the money. A few suggested that I was a hypochondriac, imagining ill health. Many physicians assume that if they do not understand what is wrong, the patient must be imagining his illness. At the time, I thought all of my doctors were baffled because my case was so complex. In the end, however, the answers proved to be simple. The answers had been there all along. One just needed to know where to look. From bad to worse. As sick as I was after 10 months of illness, things were about to become much worse. One of the last physicians I went to see made a decision that nearly killed me. He prescribed an anti-parasitic drug, metronidazole, which turned out to be hepatotoxic, poisonous to the liver. I suffered a severe reaction to the drug. In my weakened and chemically sensitive condition, I should never have been given this drug, as I would later learn from the medical literature. Perhaps I should have known better, given my prior experiences with medical doctors, but trusting the doctor and knowing of no other options, I took the drug. Metronidazole is known to be stressful to the liver, and my liver was already under a lot of stress. I could not handle the additional toxic load. My liver failed, and I was at death's door. As I lay in bed, deathly ill with chemical hepatitis, my weight dropped from an already trim 160 pounds at 6'2" to a positively skeletal 120. I was too weak even to lift my head. My vital signs were failing, and my physicians doubted that I would survive. Death appeared certain. As I continued to rely on conventional medicine, I would not be here today, and you would not be reading my story. As weak as I was, something inside of me was not ready to let go, not without a fight, but I did not know where to turn. I do not know where to turn for help. As I look back, I am amazed at the chain of events that saved my life and allowed me to regain control of my health. My brother, bless his heart, started the process. During my illness, he had flown across the country to be with me. He gave me a book that proved instrumental in saving my life. Norman Cousins' bestseller, Anatomy of an Illness. Maybe we could add that to our book club. In 1964, Norman Cousins, a layman with no medical or scientific training, was diagnosed with ankylosing spondylitis, a connective tissue disease that deteriorates collagen, the glue that holds our cells together. Cousins' disease was literally causing his body to fall apart. His illness, like mine, was deemed by his physicians to be incurable and fatal. Unwilling to accept such a prognosis, Cousins sought whatever knowledge he could to help himself. He succeeded. Not only did he find ways to save his own life, he later became a professor of medicine at UCLA. Cousins took action in 4 areas. First, like myself, Cousins recognized that he was being harmed by his medical treatment. He concluded that the drugs his physicians were prescribing were so toxic that they were accelerating his decline. He stopped taking the drugs. Second, he discovered the enormous power of the mind over the body. The excruciating pain he was experiencing was affected by his attitude toward the pain. By learning to change his attitude, he could reduce his pain. Third, he found laughter to be helpful. 10 minutes of genuine, hearty laughter would cause his pain to go away for hours. He started watching funny movies, and when the effect would wear off, he would switch on the projector and laugh some more. I like to watch kitty videos for me. 5 minutes every day. That's my prescription for myself. The laughter had profound and beneficial effects on his body chemistry and contributed to his recovery. Fourth, he discovered the powerful anti-inflammatory properties of vitamin C. He decided to take 25 grams a day, administered by intravenous drip. This action had a profoundly beneficial effect on his highly inflammatory condition. By avoiding toxic prescription drugs, changing his attitude, laughing, and administering plenty of vitamin C, Cousins made a miraculous recovery. Miraculous recovery. They said laughter is the best medicine. I think that's the truth, isn't it? And it's free. Laughing is free. Lying on what had been pronounced my deathbed, I thought about Cousins' book in relation to my graduate school days doing scientific research at MIT. I wondered how Cousins managed to find the pertinent information he needed to save himself. If Cousins, a dying man with no scientific training, could obtain such critical life-saving knowledge, why couldn't his physicians? After all, these professionals had devoted their entire careers to medicine. Knowing that Cousins had found a way to save his own life encouraged me. I hoped that my scientific training as a chemist might enable me to do the same. As I lay there with a poisoned liver, dying from chemical hepatitis, I realized that if I wanted to live, I must act quickly. Not much time was left. Thinking about how instrumental vitamin C was in Cousins' recovery, I remembered from my study of biochemistry that vitamin C plays an essential role in liver detoxification. Because my liver had been poisoned by a toxic drug, perhaps some vitamin C would help it detoxify. It seemed like an experiment worth doing, and besides, I knew of no other options. It worked. 24 hours after starting oral doses of vitamin C, about 4 grams a day, my vital signs began to stabilize. In 48 hours, I was able to sit up in bed. A few days before, death had been a certainty. Now I could sit up, which was the first time I had experienced a measurable improvement in all those months. Progress, even in the form of something as simple as sitting up in bed, can be incredibly inspiring. At that point, I knew I could take action that would make a difference. Meanwhile, my physicians could not understand why I not only survived, but actually improved. I was still far from well, though. I was a frail skeleton. I had difficulty performing the simplest tasks, such as dressing, or tying my shoelaces. I had no energy and became fatigued from the slightest exertion. My hands and feet were numb. I had difficulty walking and moved slowly. I was lightheaded and tended to fall over easily. Worse, my brain had trouble functioning. I felt like I was in a mental fog. I had difficulty with short-term memory and simple calculations. Even as I improved enough to venture out again, I could not make correct change at the grocery store and easily forgot what I intended to do. Perhaps worst of all was the horrific chemical sensitivity that I continued to suffer, causing me to become weak, disoriented, and debilitated. The toxic assault on my body by the metronidazole had left me with acute chemical sensitivities. For instance, when I turned on the water faucet, the subtle chlorine fumes coming out with the water were enough to cause me to become weak, lightheaded, and disoriented. I could not read or be near printed materials because of the chemical fumes coming from the ink and paper. I used only a speakerphone because I would react to the fumes off-gassing from the plastic telephone receiver. My gas water heater had to be replaced with an electric unit because I reacted to the combustion fumes diffusing into the surrounding living space. I had to wear clothes made only from natural fibers to avoid the toxic fumes from synthetics. I had to purchase special water and air filters. Even with these many precautions, I was debilitated by my relentless reactions to a myriad of environmental chemicals. Someone who has not personally experienced chemical sensitivity has a hard time understanding just how a whiff of certain chemicals can create total havoc in a matter of seconds. I remember once taking a piece of Scotch tape off a roll and being devastated for the rest of the day by the seemingly inconsequential chemical odor of the tape. With chemical sensitivity, the nervous system develops a memory of past reactions. This effect is called classical conditioning, i.e., biological learning. And upon detecting these reactive agents again, even in infinitesimal quantities, a full-scale response is produced. Yeah, the body is like on fight, flight, high alert. Red alert, red alert. And they overreact. Our modern world is permeated with chemicals that can produce such reactions in susceptible people. In this hideous state of health, I fell into a deep depression. I thought about taking my life. Although I had made some progress, I was allergic to almost everything, and I was in a constant state of debilitating reactions. My life was ruined. No doctor could help me. I was unable to do any meaningful activity and had nothing to look forward to. I could not even watch television because of the chemical fumes off-gassing from the TV set as it heated up. Choosing to live. One beautiful afternoon, I was sitting out in the sun and contemplating the meaning of life. Illness has a powerful way of providing perspective and a time to think about the really important things. I asked myself whether or not I wanted to continue living. I decided that I did not want to die. I wanted to live. However, life was not worth living in such a debilitated state. My only option was to find a way to become healthy again. How could I do this? The doctors could not help. In large measures, doctors had brought me to my failing condition. I recall thinking about the explosion of knowledge in the world, about all the new scientific data being published every day. Surely somewhere, some key bit of information would help me. I became determined to find out whatever I could, but it was not easy. My vision was blurred and my eyes hurt. Given that I was unable to be near printed materials because of the ink fumes, how could I study? My mind didn't work out either. Contemporary literature about chemically sensitive people describes this debilitating type of brain fog. In my early quest to research my health condition, I would find myself lost in a mental fog, spending hours reading the same material repeatedly without realizing it. Ironically, I was reacting to the very materials I was using to learn how to restore my health. Still, I remained determined. I purchased a respirator mask to protect me from the chemicals coming from the ink in my study materials. Excuse me. Unfortunately, the rubber part of the mask gave off toxic fumes. I took the mask apart, boiled the rubber pieces in water for 2 days, and then reassembled it, which made the mask tolerable so I could wear it while I did the necessary work. Next, I purchased a portable electric oven and 100 feet of outdoor extension cord. I placed the oven downward from my house and baked all of my reading materials in order to drive off the ink chemicals. Bizarre, but it worked. Now, at least I could handle and read my rapidly accumulating piles of medical and scientific literature. I began to educate myself, looking for clues that might help to restore and improve my health. Thus began a new phase of my life, which continues to this day. I came across fascinating information as I searched for the answers to my questions. I read technical papers written by a biochemist who, like myself, had become chemically hypersensitive. No physician had been able to help him either, and his sensitivity was so great that he was forced to move to a distant location that harbored no man-made chemicals. He moved into a small wooden shack on a remote beach. Eventually, through his understanding of biochemistry, he was able to take steps to restore his health. Knowing that someone else had been able to heal himself of this horrendous condition gave me the hope I needed so much. His example convinced me that I too would be able to help myself to understand the biochemistry of my illness and apply sound scientific principles to solve my problems. It took me 2 years of learning and experimenting to raise myself from the depths of liver failure, chronic fatigue, autoimmune diseases, and chemical sensitivity. Recovery took a great deal of persistence, willingness to try new things, and acceptance of many setbacks. In particular, at the height of my chemical sensitivities, I had to be extremely careful about the products I selected. Even minute amounts of toxins were enough to make me ill. I ended up with a kitchen full of vitamin supplements that I could not take because of toxic impurities and my level of susceptibility. Even healthy people are harmed by these impurities, although it may not be as evident to them. I learned the hard way how suffering can come when health is failing. And when you try remedies that do more harm than good, oh, sorry, I lost my place there. Do more harm than good. Okay. Here we go. Even with my scientific training, finding the answers was difficult, particularly with vitamin supplements and personal care products. A great deal of conflicting information abounds, and consumers remain confused about how to make the best choices. Accurate health information is in great demand, and that is precisely what this book provides. I want to share what I have learned about getting well and staying well. In 1991, I resigned from all my business and community activities and devoted myself to teaching others how to be healthy. I started by speaking to groups, at first the same support groups to which I had belonged during the depths of my illness. Then I branched out with a wider audience, which evolved into a regular evening workshop series that continued for years. Later, a publisher became aware of my work and invited me to write a column for his newspaper. After that, I started a radio show called An Ounce of Prevention and began publishing my own newsletter, Beyond Health News. This book is the next step. Reaching our potential. One of the most profound conclusions I have reached is that health is a choice. Virtually no one ever has to be sick. The potential for human health and longevity is far greater than we are now achieving. Scientific studies describe populations who lived longer and healthier lives than we do, simply because their societies made dietary and lifestyle choices that supported human health. With just a little knowledge and effort, we can do the same. We can choose health, but first we must educate ourselves. Our own quest for an understanding of how the body maintains and heals itself continues to this day. Throughout my research, I continue to ask myself basic questions, such as, what is health? What is disease? Why do people get sick? How can disease be prevented or reversed? How long can people live in good health? And what does it take to achieve this? What is the potential for human health and longevity? Please allow me to pass on to you a truly revolutionary theory of health and disease, one that is so simple and powerful that it gives you the choice to never be sick again. End of chapter 1. Wow, that was amazing. I enjoyed it very much. Well, thank you for tuning in. Happy New Year. And we will continue with chapter 2 next week. So in the meantime, have a great day. Have a great night, great week, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye now.